Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to be talking about UFC Saudi Arabia. Robert Whittaker versus Ikram Aliskerov. My friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Kingdom Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, all the way in the desert for a pivotal main event showdown in the middleweight division. Initially, it was supposed to be Robert Whittaker, or as we like to say in Brazil, Robert Whittaker, taking on Khamzat Chimaev. Unfortunately, Khamzat's got some health concerns, and we wish him the best. Really hope that he can find out what the issue is and move forward, because he's such a young, talented guy, and you want to see a guy like that meet his potential. But they got a very suitable replacement in Ikram Aliskerov, a guy who actually fought Khamzat Chimaev. That's actually his only loss. He got knocked out in that fight, but I thought he was looking good in that fight up until then. And since that point, he's gone on a big run, made it to the UFC. He's running through everybody. And now he gets a massive step up in competition against the former champion, Robert Whittaker. So without further ado,
let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Main event of the evening in the middleweight division. We got Robert the Reaper Whittaker. He's 25-7, taking on Ikram Aliskerov, who's 15-1. And currently, they got it. Robert Whittaker minus 155. The comeback on Ikram Aliskerov is plus 135. And I love this. I love this fight for a lot of reasons. Firstly, what can you say about this dude, Robert Whittaker, who, he's still young. How old is Robert Whittaker? He can't be that old. Robert Whittaker, he's been in the UFC since he was a kid. He's only 33. The thing is, you got to take into account when he made his UFC debut against Brad Scott, or as we also like to say in Brazil, Brad Scotch. That was in 2012. So, goddamn, my boy, a fucking 12-year UFC career like that, and he's still only 33. Like, man, respect to Whittaker. Like, this dude, I was telling this story on Twitter earlier about how my dad was at the gym like 10 years ago. I guess now 12 years ago, right? And he texted me, and because they were showing the tough smashes at the gym he was at. I guess he was doing cardio or something like that. And he's like, Daniel, like, have you seen this kid, Roger Whittaker? He called him Roger Whittaker. I was like, yeah, I know about Robert. I know about Roger Whittaker. And he's like, look out for this guy. He's super talented. He was right. He had a good eye for it. Look what this man's gone on to accomplish. And the thing you love about a guy like Rob Whittaker is ever since he moved up to 85s, because, he used to fight at 70s, right? He moves up to 85s, and he's been the smaller guy in the weight class, but he's like a cat. He's so athletic. His takedown defense is some of the best I've ever seen. His get-up game, even in Jacare's prime, the way he escaped any bad spot against Yoel Romero, the way he wrestled with him. I know more recently, Dricus Duplessis judo throwed him and had a Darce attempt, but like, you got to take into account. I know Dricus' fighting style might not look the prettiest, but Dricus is a physical freak. Dricus, it's like a silverback gorilla. So, I don't hold it against Robert getting manhandled in that spot. And then as far as Ikram, so Ikram has a ton of potential. Okay, Ikram is very, very talented. Like, he's a guy who, on his regionals, for the most part, basically ran through everybody he fought. He did have that kind of close fight with Chad Hanekom, what you saw on Contender Series looked awful. But then again, that was in 2018, my guys, like 6 years ago. A young kid like that is going to be making big improvements. And I love the way he's been handling these guys. On his regional scene, he fought Dennis Chaluin, who's in the UFC. He finished him, but it took him to the third round to do so, but still got the job done. Knocked out Phil Haas, knocked out Worley Alves. So it's like, okay, what's the next logical step up in competition? Well, they thought, maybe a Nasruddin. They thought maybe an Anthony Fluffy. They thought maybe an Andre Muniz. They were like, here, take this Tricoli guy. But all those fights fell through. So now you're getting one of the biggest step ups in competition that we've seen in a long time for a main event. And let's see if this kid's ready to rise to the occasion. Something I took away from that Phil Haas fight. So, let's be honest here. Phil Haas actually rocked Ikram in that fight. Got a little wobble out of him, but I know Phil isn't as confident in his chin, rightfully so. he didn't really have it in him to kind of like follow through when he had Ikram hurt. He kind of let him recover. And then when it was Ikram's chance to reciprocate uh, and return the favor, boy, did he do so, man. I mean, he got aggressive. And one thing about Ikram, he definitely has the Russian grinding style, but he's focused a lot more on his stand-up, and it has gotten better. And I like the aggression. I like the timing. Just certain things defensively, I think, can be patched up. But I guess you could say that about a lot of fighters. And with Robert Whittaker, with Robert Whittaker, it's a thing where his takedown defense is amazing. Basically, everything about his game is amazing. His left hook, his footwork, that sneaky high kick, his takedown defense, his get-up game, his jiu-jitsu. Like, what is not good about Robert Whittaker? Well, his chin might not exactly be the best. It's not the worst, because this guy, he got hit with a spinning heel kick from Paulo last fight. He did the chicken dance, which Robert does the chicken dance in a lot of fights, but Robert still recovered from it. And I wanted to be like, oh, but we're not at a point where Robert's getting dropped by jabs. Actually, not true. Dricus du Plessis did it. But then again, is that more so, Rob's durability waning, or is that just Dricus, like I said, silverback gorilla? I mean, and he's South African. I remember back in my day when I did a little kickboxing sparring with a South African once, Phil Botha, shout out. And he hit me with a jab, just a jab. And like, bro, I got rocked. Like my eyes started watering. It was crazy. So South Africans hit different, man. Just Africans in general hit different. So maybe that's what that was. As far as this matchup is concerned, it's weird to call the Russian guy the one with the puncher's chance, right? Because oftentimes you think about them more as grinders. It seems like such a hard, like, concept for me to wrap my brain around someone grinding out Robert Whittaker, unless he's truly at that point where like guys that had no business beating him in the past are going to beat him now, right? Unless it's a case like that. Okay, that's one thing. But I mean, dude, his takedown defense and again, scrambling ability, athleticism is so up there that I do think Ikram's going to have a hard time here. It's just a lot of people have wobbled and rocked Robert Whittaker. But Ikram's not exactly out of the clear in that department either. I think he can get rocked too. So this is a really good fight. I mean, I think you have to favor Robert Whittaker, but it's just one of those things where when you've climbed the mountain as many times as Robert has, right? He's won the belt before. He's lost the belt. He's gone back and fought for the belt again and lost that opportunity. And then he lost to the current champion too. It's like, how many more times can you climb up the mountain? But then again, he's only 33, but he's not the youngest 33. So it's just kind of tough. But then back with Ikram, it's like you didn't even get the chance to like fight like a top 15. Like, you didn't get to fight like let me pull up these rankings real quick and see who are some of these guys that he didn't get the chance to even, climb your way up the rankings. So like, okay, at middleweight, is Ikram even ranked? Dog, is Ikram even ranked? Ikram's not even ranked. So, like, what I'm trying to say here is, like, okay, you didn't have to go through a Chris Curtis, a Kyle Bahio, a Jack Hermanson, a Brendan Allen, a Vittori, a Cannonier, an Imavov. Like, you just went from Phil Haas and Worley right to you skipped the whole top 15. Now you're fighting, the number 3 guy on planet Earth, the former champion. So that is a massive step up in competition, but that doesn't mean that this guy can't rise to the occasion. I think Ikram's very good. I think he's very talented, and I think he's leveling up fight by fight. So will it surprise me if he comes out here and is the millionth guy to rock Robert Whittaker, and then, but not the millionth guy to knock him out, but go out there and actually get that upset knockout? It would not surprise me. What would surprise me would be an Ikram kind of grinding out Rob. That would be a big sign of like, okay, maybe Rob truly has seen better days. But man, I think Rob can scramble with this guy. I think Rob can pick this guy apart, a lot of movement, bounce around with that jab, that check left hook, that sneaky high kick, and pick this man apart or knock him out. So yeah, I'm gonna go Robert Whittaker here, but proceed with caution, because again, when fighters are, I don't know if I want to call it the twilight of his career, because again, he's only 33. But what are his aspirations at this point, dude? Like you've been doing this for so long. You're a young legend, right? You're not an old legend. You're a young legend. Like, what are your goals here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But if all things are equal in terms of like they're both at their best, I do think Robert Whittaker wins this fight, but I'm not counting out Ikram because I do think he is that talented, and I'd like to see his progression. And this is your chance to rise to the occasion, kid. And if you're ready for it, hey, all respect, my man. And if not, it's okay because you didn't have to fight anyone in the top 15. This is just such a step up in competition that you lose this fight, you go back, pay your dues some more, get right back in there. So yeah, I'm gonna lean with Rob, but again, it's just sketchy with this point in his career, with certain things I've seen. But skill for skill, I think he's better than Ikram, and for that reason, I'm gonna pick him to win this fight. Now, co-main event of the evening in the heavyweight division. We got a matchup between Sergei Pavlovich, he's 18-2, taking on Alexander Volkov, who's 37-10. Currently, they got it. Pavlovich minus 235. The comeback on Volkov is plus 200. So this is an interesting one because it's like we don't really know what Sergey looks like past round one in the UFC. Outside the UFC, he went past round one, but different promotion, different times. Here in the UFC, it hasn't gone past round one ever, win or lose. This guy's like the white Russian Ngannou to an extent, because I've seen Ngannou wrestle in championship rounds, so maybe I should take that back. But just in terms of like that one hitter quitter, in terms of like who's got that nuclear option, I mean, you got to give it to a guy like Sergey Pavlovich all day. And dudes don't just run through Alexander Volkov, usually like by knockout. Like how many times has this guy been knocked out? Twice. And one of them was in the third round against Black Beast in a fight that was like, people see it as like, oh, Volkov was just whooping on Black Beast, and then he pulled a stunt and got caught. Nah, dog, come on. Volkov was winning the fight, but like Black Beast had a lot of moments where he landed a lot of bombs, and with with less than less than 15 seconds left in the final round, got caught with one big one, and that's what it was. But besides that, you got to date back all the way to 2013 when he lost to the then 12-0 Vitaly Minikov by knockout in the first round, who's now 22-2. You know what I mean? That's a real guy. So it can happen. It can happen. It happened a long time ago. Will it happen again? And then the other big question is when you're laying a price like this and it does go past round one, that's where I'm kind of worried about, Sergey kind of starting to slow down. The punches come a little bit labored because, he loves to swing them bungalows. And Volkov, who maybe doesn't have the one-hitter quitter, but has kind of that long finesse with the teeps, with the jabs, with the straight punches, and some veteran tactics, pick him apart a little bit. This man landed a takedown on Curtis Blades in their fight. Now, granted, Sergey knocked Blades into the next dimension, but just saying, I'm very intrigued by the prospects of this fight going past the first. I think it might be a dog or pass situation because it's like if Sergey doesn't just run him over, because let's examine what Sergey's been doing to guys and the time he's been doing it in. The Curtis Blades fight, a 3-minute knockout. The Tuivasa fight, a 54-second knockout. The Derek Lewis fight, a 55-second knockout. The Shamil fight, another first-round knockout. The Maurice Green fight, another first-round knockout. The Marcelo Golden fight, another first-round knockout. So it's like you're not really seeing what this guy can do deep into fights. And again, I know back in 2017, he actually went 5 rounds, but he looked kind of different back then. And again, 2017, we're in 2024 now, my friends, like almost a decade ago. So I just need to see what he looks like extended at the UFC level. And then it's like, do I think he's going to knock out Volkov in the first round? Now, when you hear those training stories and you hear about how Volkov talks about how like, oh man, when I trained with this guy, I don't remember anything. It'd be like a dark room. Is he telling the truth, or is he just kind of, giving credit to an old teammate, trying to show respect? Russians and Europeans in general are very respectful when it comes to like, just martial arts and sportsmanship. And like, you look at, unless they feel like they got fucked over, right? Like you look at Yuri Prohashka, And everybody knows that that Alex Pereira fight was an early stoppage. And Yuri, the night of, he was like, "Oh no," he was being all humble, acting like, "Oh no, it's fine, I was out." But then, a couple of months later, he started to be like, "Dude, that stoppage was questionable," and I'm glad they're running it back. So back to this, I really do think it's dog or pass at like plus 200. It's just you lay a plus 200, the guy gets starched in a minute 30. Probably gonna feel like an idiot, but is he gonna get starched in a minute 30? Like, Volkov is seasoned. Volkov is experienced. Volkov is no slouch. So I really don't know. Usually when I don't know, I go with the dog. It's just my hesitation is, the firepower Sergey brings to the table. You know how this guy swings. It's tough. It's tough. But when I'm this much on the fence about, a minus 230 favorite, I think I'm gonna lean towards the dog. I'm just worried, he doesn't have the same firepower. He's gonna have to and he's got that tall man's defense. He's gonna have to circle a lot, let this guy kind of gas himself out, then start to pick him apart with the jabs, circle, maite, use your teeps, your carrot tops, all that. So I really don't know. I really don't know. I'm gonna go Volkov because I think that's the play in terms of like if you're laying money on this fight, in terms of money line. You guys fuck around with your props, do your thing, all respect, but money line, I think Volkov's the side. Watch him get starched in 30 seconds now, right? Featured bout in the middleweight division was supposed to be the welterweight division, but my boy Kelvin Gastelum. How many 50K bonuses this guy has got, man? I mean, you give me that many 50K bonuses, I'm gonna be hitting the taco truck after practice every single day too. So the guy said, "Hey, I can't make it to 70s," and it's just so annoying because like for the longest time, like, so Kelvin was missing weight at 70s back in the day. Like, y'all remember when he fought Woodley and he missed weight by like 11 pounds and all this stuff. So he moves up to 85s and like has an incredible title fight with Izzy Adesanya at 85s. And he's still talking about like, "Oh, I need to drop to 70. That's my real weight class." Like, why, dude? Like, you're having success at middleweight. And then I know he kind of went on that skid. So then it was like, okay, this is probably the right time to move to 70s. He moves to 70s. He looked absolutely atrocious. I get it. Sean Brady is a completely different matchup than D-Rod. But firstly, did I even mention the odds and the records? Kelvin Gastelum's 18-9, D-Rod 17-4. Currently, they got it. Kelvin minus 230, D-Rod plus 200. So, yeah, so Kelvin moves back down to 70s and looks awful. And I get it. Brady's a completely different matchup than D-Rod, but still, that was not, exactly the performance that makes you think like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to the prospects of this guy making a run. His on mission for gold." Like, come on, dog. And then D-Rod, on the other hand, I know that the last couple fights haven't gone his way. I can give him a pass for the Ian Gary fight. Like, we can say what we want about Ian, but Ian's like a legit top 15 guy, so I'll give him a pass for that. And it was just a bad stylistic matchup. But the Magny fight, he definitely pulled a stunt against Magny, and I had money on him there against Magny. But I want to say something regarding that. You know who else cost me money against Magny? Kelvin Gastelum. So let's not act like it was only D-Rod who pulled a stunt against Magny. Gastelum also pulled a stunt against Magny. Granted, it was a long time ago, but I was around and I lost on both. But as far as this matchup is concerned, here at middleweight, I mean, when I see a plus 200 and you see the kind of fights that Kelvin gets into, they're usually these close fights that could go either way. Like the fights he wins, the fights he loses, like the Darren Till fight. He was a big favorite in that spot. Darren Till was around the price that D-Rod's at, and it was a close split decision type fight. Till ends up getting it done. The Chris Curtis fight, that one Kelvin won, but again, another close fight that could have gone either way. And if that's going to be the case here, where D-Rod does have the size, I said the leech. He fought the leech. He's got the range, the reach, the height, and he's gonna bang it out. And most importantly, this is my favorite key point here. He's got the output and the volume to match a guy like Kelvin and push a pace on him. And if Kelvin's really been, hitting those birria tacos and some tacos al pastor con todo, you know what I'm fucking saying, then you got to push a pace on a guy like this. It's just unfortunate that he doesn't have to cut the weight to 70 where he would really be drained. And then D-Rod, I think D-Rod would have a big advantage there. But typical lazy KG, you know. So this fight's at 85s, and even with that, I still see it being close. Like, I think that, yeah, on paper, Kelvin's got wrestling advantage and upside, but like, he doesn't really use it that often. He likes to bang, and that's why we like watching him fight. And guess who likes to bang too? D-Rod. I'm gonna go with the plus 200 dog here. I'm gonna go with D-Rod to win probably a decision against Kelvin Gastelum. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Shara, the Pirate Magomedov. He's 12-0, taking on Antonio Tricoli, who's 12-3. Currently, they got it. Shara minus 550. The comeback on Antonio Tricoli's plus 400. So people were predicting minus 1,000s. It's about half of that. So maybe y'all think there's value on Shara. Listen, Shara, when you think of the Russian fighters, you think of that grinding style, but that's not what Shara brings. He's got an exceptional kicking game. He's very athletic, but he's actually got to work on his takedown defense and get up game, which is not something you often say about Russians. But that being said, with this dude Tricoli, and I tell this story every time Tricoli's supposed to fight. He's supposed to make his UFC debut how many times now, and it hasn't happened. But I always talk about it. I saw Tricoli fight in the NFC. Now, it was an NFC show in Atlanta, but it was actually Legacy. Legacy was LFA before they were called LFA. So they come to Atlanta. They use the NFC venue. The whole card was NFC fighters, but they just used the LFA, the Legacy production. So on that card, I got to see Antonio Tricoli at 170 pounds fight Diego Lima, the brother of Douglas, and Diego does his thing. Very ugly fight, by the way. And it never crossed my mind, oh, this guy's gonna make it to the UFC. So he actually moves up in weight class, which I think is good for him because the guy's like 6'5". Ran through Jack Hermansen's training partner on Contender Series, Kenneth Berg. And after that, I think he tested positive for steroids. And then it's just been like fight cancellation after fight cancellation. They're trying to give him the hardest matchups and this and that. And now he's going to come in here. The funny thing about this, though, isn't Tricoli like a black belt in jiu-jitsu? And if Tricoli takes this dude's back, hey, dog, I would not fucking be surprised at all if he choked him out. The issue is if this guy can't get it to the ground, let alone hold him down, let alone get into dominant positions, he's going to get picked apart standing and possibly knocked out. So you got to go with the big favorite here with Shara. And yeah, I think he's going to get his second UFC win. Now, opening up the main card in the light heavyweight division, we got a match between Johnny Walker. He's 21-8, taking on Volkan Oezdemir, who's 19-7. Currently, they got it. It's a pick'em, dead pick'em, minus 110 on each side. Yeah, this is an interesting matchup for a lot of reasons because it's like Johnny Walker is a very awkward guy with not the best technique, but like up there with insane athleticism and physical tools. 6'6", 82-inch reach. Was born in 1992. Like, so he's still young, he's still developing, but there's things about the game. Obviously, we can talk about the chin, but like there's a lot more flash than there is substance. Don't get me wrong, he can get away with the flash too. I mean, look at some of the guys he's beaten. Knocked out Khalil Roundtree in the first round, you know. Beat the shit out of Anthony Smith, which a lot of people do, but hey, Anthony Smith just beat my rookie of the year, Vitor Petrino. So, you know, look, what I'm trying to say is that like, I thought that Johnny showed he could start to like follow a game plan in that Anthony Smith fight, like chopping him down with the calf kicks, not taking any unnecessary risks, which I actually thought he could have taken some more risks in that fight and possibly got a stoppage because he had Smith so rocked that Smith was like having flashbacks of like home invasions, which is not a laughing matter, but I'm just saying, like, I thought that I would have liked to see a little bit more urgency from Johnny Walker. So it's like you got to find that middle ground. Comes into the UFC, ultra aggressive, flying knees, spins the whole bit, gets humbled a little bit, kind of tones it down, has that awful fight with Thiago Santos where they each don't throw a single strike for 5 rounds. And then we saw some performances from Johnny Walker. We're like, okay, now we're starting to trend in the right direction. I know Ankalaev is obviously a very tough matchup for everyone, so I'm not going to hold that against him. And then with Volkan, I look at Volkan as like a traditional Euro kickboxer. He is rounding out his game a little bit, you know. Y'all saw that submission win he had against Bogdan. But I just mainly see Volkan as the more kind of, you know, meat and potatoes, solid, well-rounded, just guy here, and you just a Euro kickboxer for the most part. I do think he's got some gas problems in terms of, like, you watch that Krylov fight, man. He came out hard against Krylov and gassed badly late into that fight. And I think that Volkan has a really good chance to actually starch Johnny Walker. But I think that the longer the fight goes, interestingly enough, I think that Johnny Walker can give him a lot of problems with the range and kind of just the unorthodox attacks, kind of like Jiri did. I'm not comparing Johnny to Jiri. Please don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying Jiri's kind of unorthodox attacks really threw Volkan off. And I think that Johnny Walker can do similar things here, assuming he doesn't get chin checked, because you always have to factor in the possibility of Johnny Walker getting laid out. But if he doesn't get laid out, I think he's got a good chance here. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if either guy mixed in wrestling here. So that's another interesting one. I'm going to lean slightly, ever so slightly, with Johnny Walker. Main event of the prelims, we got Nasrat Haqparast. He's 16-5, taking on Jared Gordon, who's 20-6. Currently, they got it. Nasrat Haqparast minus 230. The comeback on Jared is plus 200. I like this fight too, because Nasrat's a kid who kind of grew up in front of our eyes, man. He's a guy who's paid his dues. He's been through the ups. He's been through the downs. And there's a lot to like about him, man. His left hand is pretty nuclear, man. I remember when he fought Neto BJJ and starched him with that overhand left. And, man, that left hand is deadly. His takedown defense has been getting better over the years. Let's double check that the volume has been getting better as well. I need to. Yes. Okay, so this is a very good talking point. When I bet on Bobby Green against Nasrat, it was because of the volume edge. And, like, look at the numbers Bobby Green put up, my guys. Bobby Green landed 188 significance and threw 355. Nasrat only landed 76. So we were thinking, you know, the volume ain't on the higher side, is a lot on the lower side, and we want to pick that up. And boy, did he pick that up in that Landon Quinones fight. And he threw a career high. This dude Nasrat goes out there in that Landon Quinones fight. He attempts 378 strikes. He lands 172 of them. If that's not an improvement in your output, I don't know what is, because it's like the thing with Jared is he's got decent volume at times too. And he's able to kind of slow fights down. And one thing that I think is very underrated about Jared Gordon is he's very deceptively heavy on top. If he can get on top of Nasrat at times, I think he can grind out Nasrat. But on the feet, so where the volume might kind of at times even itself out, there's a big power edge for Nasrat with that left hand. And I think that he's paid his dues to the point now where he does have the maturity necessary to come out here and beat an established, respected UFC veteran like Jared Gordon, who has an incredible backstory, who has been paying his dues, who's not the most athletic guy, who's not the most talented and gifted guy, but has stayed in the UFC this long. Like, that's just credit to his resilience, his resolve, his will to win, his desire to pick himself back up and be an inspirational figure in his community. So all respect to Jared Gordon. I just think that Nasrat a little bit quicker, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more athletic, and is starting to hit his peak. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Nasrat Haqparast to win this fight. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Muhammad Naimov. He's 11-2, taking on Felipe Lima, who's 12-1. Currently, they got it. So this line's been moving all over the place, my guys. Right now, it's a dead pick'em, minus 110 apiece. I've seen dog money on both sides throughout the week. And I like this fight a lot because Muhammad Naimov, I got to give him so much credit, dude. Like, I don't know if y'all remember the regard we held him in when he was on Contender Series. Like, he lost to, again, when I talk about one of the worst guys and this and that, like, I don't mean one of the worst guys. Like, I don't mean that I would go beat him in a fight, but I mean at the UFC level, that Colin Anglin guy wasn't going to hang around. And he took it from Naimov. Like, Naimov had a good little early start, and Colin Anglin took it from him. Like, so then I was just like, yeah, no guy that loses to Colin Anglin is going to have success in the UFC. And I got to tell you what, man, this dude's been going out there. He's been doing his thing on his regional scene, comes to the UFC, gets that Malarkey matchup, which, let me say this about the Malarkey matchup. This guy's not a 55er. Naimov's a former 35er, I'm pretty sure, right? Is he? Is that true? No, former featherweight, current featherweight. Okay, my bad. I take that back. But a featherweight moving up to 55 gets Malarkey out of there, which, you know, and Malarkey is a very, very tough Aussie, but his chin rating is kind of diminishing a little bit. It's sad because the guy's a dog, right? The Nathaniel Wood fight. Nathaniel Wood, again, talk about chins, man. Nathaniel Wood is so talented, but Nathaniel Wood, A, is too small for featherweight, and B, his chin it ain't the best, and C, if y'all want to bring up all the cheat to win tactics Naimov did in that fight, go ahead. I'm not going to hold it against you, because when I bet on someone and they cheat and they win, I'm all for it. When I bet against someone and they cheat and they win, then I'm pissed off. You know what I mean? So the Nathaniel Wood fight was what it was. And then the next one against Eric was a 44-second leg injury. So I'm still not sure what I think about Naimov. Like, I think he's got very hard kicks. I think his wrestling game has been getting a lot better, but I think that there's questions about the gas tank late into fights because he's an explosive guy. And then with Felipe Lima, I mean, this guy is a super prospect. The issue is this. There's no issue in terms of the skills. There's no issues in terms of the athleticism. Like, everything's there. Like, and people are talking about this guy's a bantamweight moving up, dude. He's a big fucking bantamweight, so he's gonna be just fine at featherweight. And it's not like Naimov's a huge featherweight either, so I'm not worried about that. As far as the short notice, this guy was already getting ready for a fight. I'm not worried about that either. I'll tell you what I'm worried about. I'm worried about a little something called the debut stunt, where a prospect that could go on to fight for a belt, could go on to do great things, for whatever reason, they dropped their debut to someone that they could clearly beat. Tyler Santos against Mauro Romero Barella. Like, come on, dog. Like, a couple fights later, Barella's out the UFC. A couple fights later, Tyler's fighting against Valentina for a belt, and people thought she arguably won. So I'm just worried about a debut stunt, because, like, all your favorite fighters have lost, almost all of them. I'm not talking about the Habibs or the Jones, but the majority of your favorite fighters have lost the people that they could have beat. I mean, you mean to tell me Beneil Dariush couldn't beat Ramsey Nijem like 9 times out of 10? You're telling me Beneil Dariush can beat Alex Hernandez 9 times out of 10? So I'm just saying, like, sometimes these guys lose to people that they would normally beat. It's just the circumstances. If this guy does not pull a debut stunt, I mean, I think he's the more well-rounded guy. I think he's the more physical guy. He's got 5-round experience. He's literally got everything I like about a prospect making his UFC debut. Just, again, now there's the intangibles of how do you react under the lights for the first time. Like, this ain't some of these other promotions he's been fighting in, which, no disrespect, they were actually some pretty good regional scenes, but the UFC is different. Those lights shine just a bit brighter, and guys that, you know, how many times have you seen a prospect come in here super hyped up and then just, you know, drop the ball to someone you think that they'd easily beat? So that's the only thing I'm worried about, is that debut stunt. But I do think that Felipe Lima is the better fighter here. And I mean, it's line 50-50. I think at Felipe's best, he's, I mean, 60-40. I think he should be minus 150 here, but, you know, the short notice makes it kind of weird. But it's not the short notice. This guy can take short notice fights. This guy trains year round. This guy's in incredible shape, and he's skilled everywhere. That's not what I'm worried about. It's more so just him not pulling the trigger because of the debut jitters. The debut jitters are incredibly real, and they happen to a lot of fighters. So I'm hoping that Felipe comes out here and rises to the occasion, because I think he's a serious talent, a real prospect, and someone that's going to go far. And respect to Naimov for his career turnaround too. If you would have told me the guy that lost to Colin Anglin would be 3-0 in the UFC, I'd be like, okay. And look at him. look, look at me now, like Leon Edwards. Look at me now. Yeah, that's kind of what I think. So yeah, I'm gonna go Felipe Lima there. Next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Rinat Fakhretdinov, he's 22-2-1, taking on Nicholas Dalby, who's 23-4-1. So both these guys have had draws in the UFC. Rinat against Zaleski, who Nicholas Dalby beat, and Nicholas had a draw with Darren Till, former title challenger. So currently they got it. Rinat Fakhretdinov minus 350. The comeback on Dalby is plus 285. This is interesting because Rinat, he's a relentless grinder, right? But he got a couple knockouts, so he kind of, you know how when these wrestlers get a couple knockouts, they fall in love with their punching power and they just want to bang it out with everyone and keep getting knockouts like every fight and stuff. So in that Zaleski fight, man, he almost put him out in like the first exchange, dude. But like the thing about, a guy like a Rinat, he's not exactly like a real striker per se. Let me be very clear about what I mean by that. Can Rinat knock people out? Can Rinat swing bombs? 100%. But for example, when I bet on Randy Brown against Zaleski, my reasoning was like these guys like Rinat, who he's really a grinder, but he swings big overhand rights. He caught Zaleski. And I'm thinking to these guys that are like not even real strikers are doing that to Zaleski. What's going to happen against Randy, who is a real striker? And Randy won the decision there. But back to this fight, Dalby's on an insane career resurgence, dude. Not just the performances, but physically, like his physique looks like this dude's doctor. Hey, just keep doing what you're doing, my boy, because this career turnaround has been a lot of fun to watch. And you just saw Rinat's last fight. He almost got finished in the third round. And you know who's one guy you do not want to gas out against? That's Nicholas Dalby. Don't ask Bonfim. Ask Darren Till. For all y'all noobs, go back and watch that Dalby versus Till fight. Tell me what happened in round 3. Don't give me no shoulder bullshit. Dalby broke Darren Till in round 3 of that fight, period, point blank. Just like Dalby broke Bonfim. And man, I really respect the guy. He used to be a guy that would get like dropped early in every single fight, like tons of fights. And man, nowadays, dude, like I like what I've been seeing. But that being said, Rinat is going to push that wrestling pace. And let's see what the numbers say in terms of Dalby stuffing takedowns. So Dalby did it. Okay, so here's the thing. Dalby got taken down 3 times against Gabriel Bonfim. Got taken down twice against Muslim Salikov, 4 times against Claudio Silva, once against Warley Alves, once against Tim Mean. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So his last 5 fights, he's been taken down all those fights. So we can probably conclude that Rinat is going to get takedowns in this fight, and grind out some time. The big question is, if Dalby's still there and you start to show him any kind of weakness, just maybe you look down between rounds, you feel a little dejected, you start to be like, whew, whew. Dalby turns up and he like goes like 2.0 in round 3. You know what I'm saying? It's like, remember 5th round Robbie Lawler was that mythical creature? Like 3rd round Dalby is a fucking menace, man. And that's the only thing I'd be worried about. But besides that, I think that Rinat probably takes the first 2 rounds, loses the 3rd, and wins a unanimous decision. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Muin Gafurov. He's 18-6, taking on Kyung Ho, Mr. Perfect Kang, who's 19-10. Currently, they got it. Muin minus 165. The comeback on Kyung Ho Kang is plus 140. So, I think y'all that came in on Muin, I don't know if it was dog odds or like minus 110 pick 'em or something like that. Y'all that came in there, you did your job. You did your job because now the line moved, the line adjusted, and now it's probably where it should be. I'm a huge fan of Kyung Ho Kang. I've been watching this guy. I mean, how long have I been watching this guy? Since I was a kid when he first came into the UFC? Let's see. Because I remember watching him fight Bruce Leroy and fucking Chico Camus and all these guys. All right, 2013. So, well, I was like 22 or some shit when this dude first got to the UFC, man. And like, man, I'm such a fan. He's a scrapper. He's a guy who's been doing this thing for a long time, and all his fights are entertaining. But that Castaneda fight was like the first time that I've seen Kyung Ho Kang like almost, I want to be very careful I say this, but like break mentally in a fight and like almost like succumb to the fact that this younger cat's going to push a higher pace on you and let's just try to survive, right? Let's, he wasn't really trying to push the issue, and it was kind of worse. And from a guy like Kang, who is known for surviving some of the worst spots and coming back and winning fights and just is always there, you know? So that was a big concern on the Kang side, that maybe he is starting to dip a little bit. And then Muin Gafurov, like, I like the skills. The guy is skilled everywhere. The guy can strike. The guy can wrestle. The issue with Gafurov is he's too small. He's not that athletic. And it's unfortunate because it cost him in fights. You could say maybe there's some questions about his chin and his gas tank as well. But skill for skill, I think he's very, very talented. And I think the big difference here is that although Kang has the UFC experience, and you have to respect that, Gafurov is going to push a much higher pace. So as long as Gafurov doesn't push such a like redlining pace that then he starts to fatigue and Kang takes over, which has happened to Muin Gafurov more than once. The Chad and Hellinger fight, even the Castaneda fight, I felt like it seemed like, okay, Muin's doing good in the second round. Then third round, drop the ball. Sure, notice, I get it. Saeed fight, come on, man. Saeed's like a top 15 guy. That's not a big deal. Saeed would whoop Kyung Ho Kang too. Let's not even talk about that. Well, we can talk about how beautiful of a choke that was, because it was a beautiful choke. But here, I just think the difference is that Muin is going to push that pace on Kyung Ho and win the decision that way. But my issue is the line. You know, like I said, when it was minus 110 apiece, calling it 50-50, okay, I got Gafurov. But now they're saying, you know, closer to, you know, 60-ish, maybe a little bit 65-ish%. I think it's about right. I don't think there's much value on Gafurov there. So now it's like, if you want to make the point for Kang, go for it. But I'm going to pick Gafurov via a hard-fought decision. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Magomed Gadziasulov. Yeah, got it right. Gadziasulov. He's 8-0. And by the way, he's not Russian. He's from Bahrain. Taking on Brenderson Hibero, who's 15-6. Currently, they got it. Magomed Gadziasulov. Fuck. I'm giving myself props. Now I'm messing up the name. He's minus 310. Taking on Brenderson Hibero, who's plus 260. So my thing with Magomed is he's only 8-0. He's still kind of figuring things out, but obviously there's a lot to like about him. You know, I know he's not Russian. He's from Bahrain, but he's got Russian traits about him. Like, you know, his fight on Contender Series, he attempted 7 takedowns, got 6 of them. He, you know, attempted 213 total strikes, which is actually not a Russian quality. They like the Russian coast. This guy was going for it. So I like that. I think that there's questions defensively. I think there might be some questions about the gas tank, but then again, he was in there with those, like, with that Jose Medina guy who like isn't the most skilled, but is like so durable, so tough that like you gas out from whooping on him. You know what I'm saying? And then with Brenderson Hibero, this dude is a banger, man. This is a guy, he comes from Evolução Tai, you know, same camp as Bruno Blindado Silva, same camp as Francisco Trinaldo. So like those guys, it's kill or be killed. It's I'm gonna knock you out or you're gonna knock me out. And but what's interesting about this fight here with Magomed is that Magomed isn't much of a KO artist. I mean, there's ground and pound and stuff like that, but he's mostly a grinder. So I'm curious if the chin of Brenderson is going to be truly tested here, because that's the issue Brendison's had. He's a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of guy. I'm going to knock you out or you're going to knock me out. And that's the bottom line. I'll be honest. Here's where I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm not really sure what his takedown defense and get up game is like. That's someone let me know in the comments. And maybe y'all are more, you know, y'all have more experience watching this man's fights. Because like we know Brendison's got insane power, but we also know that his chin ain't the best. What's his wrestling like? That's the big question. I would assume the Russians got the better wrestling here, so I'm gonna go with the Russian to win a decision. But if the Russian wants to bang, It could turn interesting. It could turn interesting. And I just called him a Russian, even though I just clarified he's from Bahrain and not Russia. That's fucking hilarious. All right. I'm gonna go with the Bahrainian. Is that how you say it? I'm gonna go with the Bahrainian, but let's see. I'm not interested in this price at all because there's a lot of unknowns in this fight. There's truly a lot of unknowns, and like if you're just basing Brenderson off his last fight, well, he was fighting a knockout artist in that fight. Now he's fighting a Bahrainian grinder, so it's just a little bit different. So I don't have the best read on this fight. I'll lean with the favorite, but I don't know. I don't know. And then last but not least, we got a matchup between Long Zhao, he's 26-8, taking on Chang Ho Lee, who's 9-1. Currently, they got it. It's another pick 'em. Long Zhao -110, Chang Ho Lee -110. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't know. This is one where, I'm not gonna bullshit you guys and act like I'm super familiar with both these guys. I mean, I have seen Long Zhao fight before because I saw him fight on Contender Series against Christian Quinones, and they put on a hell of a fight. And since then, he's been doing his thing. And then Chan Ho Lee, less experience, but he's been getting the finishes, which you like to see. Tough one, but I'm gonna go with the more experienced guy here. I'm gonna go with Long Zhao here to get it done. But let's see. Let's see. All right. Now we gotta talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So, what is the fight to watch for UFC Saudi Arabia? My friends, I think the fight to watch for UFC Saudi Arabia is probably the co-main event between Sergei Pavlovich and Alexander Volkov. So many questions. Is Sergei going to come out here and continue that streak of every single fight in the UFC, win or lose, ends in the first round? Or Volkov, extend him a little bit, start to use those long-range weapons, start to make him breathe a little heavy, and you never know what could happen late. Remember that one fight where Volkov had that like body kick KO? Was that against Walt Harris? Is that what happened when he fought Walt Harris? Let me double check that. Like, because man, we watch so many fucking fights that we forget some of these things. Yeah, it was that body kick he hit against Walt Harris. Dude, I'm just like curious if like, okay, if Alexander can just kind of pick him apart with that jab a little bit, avoid the big bombs, extend this guy a little bit, make him empty the clip, and then start to kind of pick and poke that body with some stabbing front kicks, get off on that jab a little bit, make him taste his own blood. I'm curious. And then for Sergey, you get a first round knockout here, you're right back in the mix, my boy. So for that reason, Pavlovich versus Volkov is my fight to watch. My fighter to watch. This is a good question. Who is my fighter to watch? They just show the Cedric Dumas versus Dennis Chulu and odds on there. It's too bad that fight's not happening. I think my fighter to watch is Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod. Listen, man, you came into the UFC. You went on a big win streak. Like, you were doing your thing. I know you're getting up there in age, but so what, man? Like, you got an opponent in Gastelum who's the biggest name you've ever faced. And this is a guy who's very hit or miss. You're catching him at a good time. He's talking about how, like, oh, he had a rough camp, so now he can't make 70, so this fight's at 85s. D-Rod gets this one. Anytime you beat Gastelum, it's a big deal, no matter what point of his career he's at, because Gastelum is an established UFC vet. He's a young, seasoned vet, and he's been involved in some of the best fights in the history of the sport. So if D-Rod can come out here and get a win over him, that's going to elevate his stock. All of a sudden, he's right back in the mix. So for that reason, Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez. It's not Rodriguez. He's Mexican, not Brazilian. Rodriguez is my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, we did it. It's going down this Saturday in Saudi Arabia. I truly appreciate all y'all support. Make sure you hit that like button. Leave me a comment. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Share if you feel so inclined. Truly, truly grateful. Always down to chat with anybody that has my back. On Twitter at Best Fight Picks. Also at Half the Battle HQ on Twitter. And then on Instagram at Half the Battle Pod. And I miss going live. So I like doing this show not live because I get to throw in my Scarface and my let's get down to business intros, but I want to do something live again because I miss talking with the chat, miss interacting with y'all, miss sending links so y'all could just hop in here and talk to me. Like, I miss that. So I'm going to get back to that soon. So keep that in mind. Also, let me know any other suggestions you have for the show. Always willing to listen and learn and grow and all that. So I'm just truly grateful. And thank you guys. So until the next time, let's cash these bets.